So I had a well-thought, well-planned out open for today's show, but I am told, Dani, that Darren has something to say.
I do.
So I'm just going to sit back and relax and let the man of the hour go ahead.
I'm just going to come right out and say, as I have some things percolating in my mind after the draft, I think I need to present a mea culpa here because
Yes,
I'm
that's
like, am I the only one hearing this music in my headphones? Should I play it cool? No, okay.
I said multiple times
and wrote
that there was no way that the Cardinals were going to take a running back at 3, and boy, was I wrong. And I just think it's very important for me to come clean and be transparent because, I mean, that's important to me. I was reminded of it one more time as if I needed a reminder from Janae, who decided to, one of our former coworkers who came out of the blue to tweet at me and link to a tweet that I had after they signed Tyler Algier that, well, if there was any thought that they would take Jeremiyah Love, that's definitely over. And I'm just saying, I just want to say mea culpa. I was wrong. The Cardinals indeed took a running back at number 3.
I was wrong. Dani was right. That's how you have to finish this.
Dani was right about what?
Well, that's how
lots of things.
That's how I've had to do mea culpas because I've been on the receiving end of several.
Well, let's put it this way. I think I was working on a solo path. Dani might have had another thought than I did, but I don't think it was ever a thing where I was like, Dani, you're totally wrong. So no, I'm not going to apologize today.
Well, I'm never totally wrong. I was at one point on the Love train. I tried to talk myself off of it. And then right before the draft, I had a gut feeling of, I can't go back on it. So I can't say I was fully right because I did think the Cardinals were going to take an edge rusher or an offensive lineman had they stayed at 3. So I was not fully wrong. I was on the right track.
Train track?
Thanks for your apology.
Can we get Awful Announcing to write this up and then post it? Maybe we can get it to go viral?
Again, I felt like I was in the right with a lot of that stuff, and I just was in the wrong.
I don't think you were in the wrong because I think a lot of people had the same sentiment, position, where you're selecting. But as we've discussed now countless number of times, this, at least right now, was too good of an opportunity, too good of a prospect, too good of a talent to pass up, no matter what you already had and no matter where you're selecting, and more importantly, no matter where you are within the pecking order of the National Football League.
I think I basically came around to what the thought process was, and this is why, because as we see more and more coming out about this draft, I've seen a couple of reports that there was one team out there that I think they said 25. I think it was 25 first or second round grades on players in this draft.
I believe it was San Francisco,
okay,
the team that was referenced.
It was 25, and if you're talking about the first 2 rounds, that's 64 players that you have to pick, and they only had 25 that were worth being in those first 2 rounds. So when you start looking at it from those terms and kind of where this draft was, it makes a lot more sense that you are going to, again, we're not going to know the Cardinals draft board or grades in particular, but like in the mailbag this week, I had a fine fan from Germany basically say, I would have rather see them, instead of taking a running back at 3, I would have rather see them reach for a corner or a tackle or an edge. And I'm going to disagree with that because I do feel like if they felt very strongly that Jeremiyah Love was this guy and there was nobody else really in the stratosphere at 3 that was worth to take, I wholly disagree with reaching for, because then you're in a position where you're scrambling over the next few years, in my opinion, because you had a chance to take an elite player and you didn't. I mean, that's what a lot of people feel they did in the Peterson-Levi Brown draft. They reached for Levi Brown. Joe Thomas was the best tackle. They wanted an offensive lineman. I don't know if Levi Brown was considered the 5th best player or better than Adrian Peterson. Now, I do want to say there was some other things about Adrian Peterson. He was coming off a broken collarbone or something in there. There were some people that were concerned about what his durability might be, but still. This whole thing, my whole point is I can see where the Cardinals were coming from, and we'll find out what's going to happen with Jeremiyah Love from here.
Shout out Charles Davis, good friend of Dani and mine, because he was, at least that I saw, among the first, if not the first, to mock Jeremiyah Love to the Cardinals, and he did it back on March 3rd. So that's a good month and a half before the draft. So I think that thinking as we progressed closer and closer to the Cardinals on the clock, it became, all right, here are all the pros, here are all the cons, and you kind of weigh it, and all right, this was the right decision in this moment. Now, to Darren's point, we'll find out in 5 years whether it was the right decision in hindsight. But in the moment, Dani, I think it was a no-brainer.
Too good of a player to pass up on 3. I like the pick a lot more with the second pick from the Cardinals and offensive lineman Chase Bisontis. But just looking at Jeremiyah Love with the 3rd pick, what might not feel like a need at the end of April can very well be a need at the end of September. And James Conner's coming off a pretty gnarly foot ankle injury, getting into the later stages of his career. Now, the Cardinals did sign Tyler Algier, and that was, I know, something that came up in Darren's mailbag as well of, well, then why would they even bring Algier here? Well, one, they didn't know whether or not Jeremiyah Love was going to officially be at 3, so you have to cover your bases. 2, this could have been their ideal plan all along of having Love at 3 and having Algier taking over James Conner maybe as that complimentary back. That's something Algier did in Atlanta with Bijan Robinson. So that could have been their plan. And we learned one thing. If we learned one thing from last season, it's the importance of depth in the running backs room, which the Cardinals struggled to really have and stay healthy last year. So just because it might not have been a need, which is something and we were all talking about leading up to the draft, that offensive line and edge were greater needs. It's a fine line of position of need and best player available. And it felt like more so this year than maybe years past, probably in part because of Darren's point earlier of maybe this was not the most quote-unquote elite in terms of projection draft classes. It felt like this front office really went with best player available when they were on the clock.
It's a fascinating discussion when it comes to the pick, but then you get beyond the selection, and we have all now had an opportunity to speak and interact with Jeremiyah Love. And I don't know if there is a better first impression from a first-round draft pick that I can remember on, one, the excitement level that Jeremiyah has shown to being an Arizona Cardinal, and then understanding the expectations and the pressure about being a running back selected in the top 5, and then just how easygoing and very easy to speak to, even though there is that quiet confidence that borderlines the cockiness, but I don't think it's ever overstepped that line when you listen to Jeremiyah Love speak about what he anticipates himself doing in this league.
It was a hell of a first impression. I don't see cockiness at all. He's very quiet, seems very reserved and introverted, and then, in his words, he flips a switch and he becomes like a silent killer out on the field, which is what you want in a running back. Look, he's got the talent, right? He has the burst, the speed, the quickness, the toughness, the hands to protect the football, all of those things. There's something about having the intangibles, having that toughness and the grit that can elevate an offense. And at a time where the Cardinals are still trying to figure out answers for short-term and long-term in some of their positions, that matters. That goes a long way. To hear of not just a first-round running back, a top 3 pick get up at his introductory press conference, Darren, and talk about how the most pride in his game he has is in pass protection is not very common.
You know, the Cardinals have had some really good running backs. I mean, James Conner has been a really good running back for them, but they've had one guy who's the all-time leading rusher, O.J. Anderson, who's a yard short of 8,000 in his career. He's been the leading rusher for obviously a long time. He was drafted in the first round in 1979. Stump Mitchell is second, and is like 3,500 yards short of him, 3,300 yards short of him. I can see Jeremiyah Love being that guy for this organization. I mean, could he be that first 10,000-yard rusher for a organization that's been around for a long time? I think he's got that possibility. This feels different to me than when they drafted Garrison Hurst. This feels different to me than when they drafted Thomas Jones. Guys who both ended up not doing a ton in Arizona, but ended up having pretty decent careers after they left here. I think Jeremiyah Love can be that guy, and I love, no pun intended, as what Dani was just saying, like the mindset coming in the door felt very genuine. And you're not always going to get that, but he seems to be that guy. And like I said, I've very much warmed to the idea of this happening, and we're going to find out what it means for this offense.
Already the odds-on favorite to be offensive rookie of the year, which I don't think is a surprise to anyone. The question, though, here on Cardinals Underground, presented by Pacific Office Automation, is what you just said, Darren. The role. How do you utilize Jeremiyah Love? Touches. How many touches does he get when you have already a stacked running back room? Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr.
The stacked running back room makes no difference of Love. Like, he's coming in as a starter. The draft capital used on him, the money used on him, more than $50 million guaranteed, being the third overall pick. So the stacked running backs room is not going to affect his catches, unless you're in a situation where you're using him in pass protection, you're lining him up out wide, and so you have more running. But right, like unless you're getting in the nuance of specific plays. But make no doubt about it, Jeremiyah Love is going to come in and be the starter, and Mike LaFleur might want to use a complementary set from time to time. We might see Tyler Algier in that role, maybe James Conner. There's still questions of what Trey Benson can really do going into year 3. And first, he has to stay healthy and get on the field, so there's opportunities there. I'm very intrigued, though, how this can electrify the rest of the offense, because in an ideal world, this offense is two-dimensional. They were not that last year. And so if you are relying on Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., great. If that's what a defense is expecting, then you hand it off to Love and vice versa. So you're going to have to divvy the ball up. That's something that offenses with a lot of great weapons all deal with. There aren't any divas in this locker room, so I don't expect a situation where we're going to have a player talking to the media being upset about how many touches they're getting. This is the situation the Cardinals want to find themselves in.
Because of what you just said as far as the investment, draft and financial, 15 touches a game, 20 touches a game. And before you answer, because I did go back and looked, last season at Notre Dame, 4 times in 12 games did Jeremiyah Love have at least 20 touches. I'm talking rushing and receiving. 9 times in those 12 games, he had 15 touches. Now, college and pro is different.
Very.
But I can see 15 on average touches a game, because James Conner did it 8 times in 16 games in 2024. And that was the same year Trey McBride had over 1,000 receiving yards and Marvin Harrison had almost 900 receiving yards. I think there is enough touches for Jeremiyah to get to 15 if you believe this offense is much better than it was a year ago, and if you're playing with the lead and you can run the clock a little bit more with a ground game.
It's going to be fascinating to see. See, this is why I'm not a big fan. I mean, we can sit here and say, well, 15 touches a game or whatever, but there's so much that goes into what the touches are, when they are, what it means. Like, just in general, I mean, if you're drafting a guy 3rd overall, I would hope he's getting at least 15 touches a game. I mean, you're going to have to use him like that. Now, if it turns out that he's getting 12, but you're winning a bunch of games, then nobody's going to care. And I do think it ultimately needs to be in the context of whatever this offense might look like, what else you might want to do. You know, I heard Mel Kiper suggesting with the Algier thing or Conner, you can always split Love out wide. You know, does he become essentially a 4th receiver? Now, I hesitate on that because I've been around for a lot of times of a running back and people are like, oh, you can split around, and then that never happens. That never happens to the degree that we always talk about it being. The one time it really was something was David Johnson under BA, but most of the time we talk about these running backs being receivers, and they're never quite used like that because you have receivers to do that job.
Would it surprise you, though? Because Rob Fredrickson brought it up earlier on Red Sea Report. Your slot receiver, which typically is a little bit of a smaller sized receiver, could you see Jeremiah lined up in this slot? And to your point, you're not going to see it every week, but certainly a package or two.
I mean, I could see that, but we sit there and we say smaller, except Jeremiyah Love isn't small.
I'm comparing him to Michael and Marvin and Trey. He's not nearly
Kendrick Bourne?
And that's where you'd have your slot receiver as a running back.
Well, but I guess I guess ultimately, like, again, I always wonder, is that important? Is he good enough that you're willing to take a receiver that's who his whole job is off the field, so this running back can do that?
You're paying him, to Dani's point. I would hope to see Jeremiyah Love on the field a lot.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, that is not my point. Don't get that. No, that's not my point. I'm not advocating for him to be on the field in any capacity just because he's a third pick and he's getting paid.
I'm going
to be used.
You implied that my point was, if you don't want him as your running back, put him out on the field as the slot receiver because he's a third pick. I was like, that's not my point.
I'm going to say this: he should be out there because you spent the third pick on him, and you took him specifically because you thought he was better than everybody else. The money thing, I'm sorry, no, I'm not putting him out there because he's getting paid. I put him out there because he's the third pick, but I'm not putting. Again, I'm not naive. I understand that's going to happen sometimes, but if you're making decisions because the guy is making a lot more money, then you screwed yourself from jump, in my opinion.
And my point of putting Love as a starter with that is not for that. Not that's what you're necessarily saying. My point is he's good enough of a player to have warranted getting that third overall pick and the money that comes with it. But I'm not in favor of lining him up in the slot just to simply have him on the field if he's not the designated running back in that package. I don't want to force any player. I don't want to force any rookie especially. You want to put yourself in the best position to win on any given play. And however that includes Love is great, but I am not in favor of forcing him just to be out there.
And let's also make this very clear. Some of this is just like we're sitting here in late April having a discussion because we need to talk about stuff. I mean,
he needs to learn the playbook and get used to the speed of the game.
But I guess my point is this is moot. Of course he's going to play. He's going to play a lot. He's going to play a lot because he was the third pick. And that's why you took him. And that's why he's going to play a lot. Now, it's up to them to figure out what the role is and exactly how it all fits in. And we're going to get to Carson Beck, I'm sure, in a little bit. But, I mean, I keep hearing all these people saying, oh, Carson Beck should be starting from the first week. Wolf. Or, Carson Beck should play half the season. I'm so not in that camp.
What camp are you in?
Are we transitioning here?
Sure. You're the professional journalist.
We can transition. Look, I'm not saying Carson Beck shouldn't play. I'm not saying he shouldn't get some chances. But, if I'm watching him in practice and I don't think he's ready, I'm not putting him out there just to, quote, unquote, see what we've got before the 2027 draft. I hate that idea. Hate it with a passion.
That's the difference between the coaches on the field and those in the front office. Because you're
hanging out with Monty again, are you?
Absolutely. Every day. You need to know. I understand that aspect of this conversation. You don't put them out. You don't put anyone out there until they're ready. You don't throw anyone out there until they're ready. Yet at the same time, how do you balance trying to figure out what you have in a player in order to make that decision moving forward? We're all in agreement. The franchise quarterback, are they currently on this roster?
I mean, no offense to Gardner Minshew or Jacoby Brissett or Keaton Slovis even, but the only one you're asking about with that is Carson Beck.
And how do you know unless they play?
If there's nuance. I am more with Darren. You don't want to force a quarterback out there, one, who's not ready. And again, you want to put yourself in a position to succeed and to win games. And if Carson Beck is not the answer for that, then he's not going to be out there. You have a 10-year veteran in Jacoby Brissett. You kept him here for a reason. I think a large part, no, I shouldn't say a large part of why this team felt comfortable moving on from Kyler Murray is because they felt comfortable in what they have in Brissett, regardless of picking up another quarterback in free agency, which they did with Minshew, or Beck in the draft. If you're wanting to see, well, how do you know what you have in Carson Beck? That's if you find yourself in a situation like last year where you are out of the playoffs early. If there's an injury or you know that you're not going to be making the postseason, then you put your rookie quarterback out there to see how they do under pressure in a real time, situation out there and how they're able to perform under pressure and understanding the playbook. I understand high third round pick. And so you are going to want to see what you have in Carson Beck. Similar to Jeremiyah Love, I am not forcing him out there just because you took a high third round pick on this quarterback.
What would you do with Carson Beck?
Oh, I'm what Dani's scenario is what I would do.
Okay.
I mean but I would need. Okay. If you a perfect season, Jacoby Brissett your starter all 17 games, and this team is in the playoffs.
Okay.
But what's the scenario? What happens when you don't get that strong start, or you're struggling and it's November or December? And
okay, let me throw this scenario out, and you tell me how you feel about this. You get Carson Beck 2-3 starts at the end of the year. You unfortunately don't win enough games. You have a top 5 pick next year.
Oh, I'm still drafting a quarterback.
Well, then what are we arguing about? Then I don't.
There's clearly no feeling that he comes in as the idea of being the future franchise quarterback, because if that were the case, he would have been the first round pick.
Yes.
The flip side is if you do play him and he is successful and you have a top 5 pick, then you don't need your quarterback.
Okay.
Now, how do you define him being successful if he's not winning?
Well, no. Here's the problem I have with that. What does it look like that you are... Okay, obviously, if he walks in and looks like C.J. Stroud his rookie year, that's a whole different ballgame. Okay, I'm not anticipating that. What if he comes in, does okay statistically, looks pretty decent, they're not necessarily winning games? You still drafting a quarterback or not?
I guess, to use your word, nuance, what does it look like?
That's what I'm saying.
No,
it looks like Jacoby Brissett last
I would
year.
have to see...
It looks like Jacoby Brissett last year.
I would need to see Carson Beck within this offense. Are you just being outscored? Your defense can't stop anyone.
So he's lighting it up.
He's having command of the offense, and it looks good. Then, depending on who's still around in 2027, I could certainly make a case. Yes, we're going to roll with this guy because I have seen enough from him that I don't need to invest another high pick on a quarterback.
As someone who was not in Arizona and not covering at the team at this time, is that different than Josh Rosen, Kyler Murray? Because that's what it's... As someone who was not here, that is the scenario it sounds like we are in, and my understanding is no one was against drafting Murray.
Okay.
I got Darren making a face. Maybe I'm making a point.
Going into the combine, there was no way I was drafting a quarterback. And then speaking to enough people that year, coming out of the combine, Kyler Murray's the choice. Okay. Now, that's what I heard, and that's changed my opinion. But going into that offseason, no, I was not in favor of drafting the quarterback.
You were not in favor of drafting Kyler Murray, but admit it, it had nothing to do with how Josh Rosen played either. It had nothing to do with it.
It was...
Nothing.
I just got
not one
scolded
bit
by my father. It was because of what you had done the previous year with a top 10 pick. And could you do it at the time, because teams just didn't do that?
So if along these lines, so then it doesn't have anything to do with, it has to do with draft capital. Because I guess my point is, if Carson Beck plays a bunch this season, I don't know how much, but he plays a bunch and plays like Josh Rosen, you are...
Again, I would have to see it. Again, I would have to...
I'm telling you, he played like Josh Rosen.
He's got to be
Carson Beck's face, AI it on Josh Rosen. How hard is this?
He needs to be better than Josh Rosen.
Okay. And I'm not saying here's the problem with it. I guess ultimately my point with Carson Beck, and this has nothing to do with Carson Beck per se. There's no way you can get knowledge of Carson Beck as an NFL player this year. I don't care if he starts all season for you to be able to ultimately make the decision if you should take a quarterback next year, unless he's absolute terrible, which I don't think he's going to be. But you're not going to get, he's our guy. It's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen after a year.
No. He's not going to be, I don't think he's going to be CJ Stroud. And I don't think it's fair to ask him to be that. And if you're talking about having a guy grow, and yet you're sitting there, and again, we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but you're picking high enough next year to get a blue chip quarterback prospect, I don't see. And again, I'm not trying to rip Carson Beck. I'm very excited to see what this looks like.
I think this pick is low risk, high reward. You have a quarterback you like and trust in Brissett. They like Gardner Minshew. That's why they brought him in free agency as the backup. This is great. If Carson Beck turns out to be fantastic and it's someone you want to keep moving forward, great. And if not, you have 1 and 2 quarterbacks that you like and you feel confident with. So I'm okay with this pick, right? People can feel a certain way about the type of player he is or the fact that it was a high round 3 pick. But the reality is, in this draft class, there was a drop-off of quarterbacks. So by the time the Cardinals were going to be on the clock again, if they didn't feel like there was going to be a quarterback they felt comfortable with, they had to use that top round 3 pick on Beck.
And this is the final point I make on this, but because we probably should move on to some other things. But I think ultimately, and you got to do what's right for your team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, but depending on how Carson Beck looks and does and all this stuff, and like, what are you telling Trey McBride? What are you telling Michael Wilson? What are you telling Marvin Harrison? What are you telling that defense? Okay, like, I get that, but this ain't happening in a vacuum. I just, there's other guys you got to consider.
Coaches play week to week. Fans in front office look beyond week to week.
What does that make us? Because I'm not a fan, and I'm definitely not front office.
You've made it very clear you're not a fan. I hope you're a fan of Dani and I. Well, that was too long of a dramatic pause. I don't like that at all. All right. You are a fan, though, of Dani and us getting cultured here on Cardinals on the Ground.
I didn't even understand where you were going with that anyways, but okay.
Getting cultured with Dani.
Always keeps it light, keeps it entertaining.
You got me very excited now.
I am on social media and consume more pop culture than both of you combined.
This is not a surprise. I have an iPhone 2.
You are hip, Craig.
Yes, I am hip.
Thank you, Dani.
Let's go. Similar to Darren, I have to start with a disclaimer. I send my sincerest apologies to One Directioners. I realized last week, randomly on my drive home from work, that I misspoke, and I did not mean to. When I was talking about the One Direction punching drama, Zayn reportedly punched Louis, not the late Liam. Now I did converse with our team photographer, who is a One Directioner, and she made me feel better by saying, I guess years ago there was a different report that Zayn had punched Liam, so maybe that's where I got the names mixed up, so I do apologize on that note. That's the editor's note. Okay, moving forward. Giants kicker Younghoe Koo missed a field goal, but saved a life. The Giants kicker missed a field goal. Craig, you haven't seen the story.
I have not.
Okay, great.
I have seen the story, Dani.
The Giants kicker missed a field goal on Monday Night Football back in December. It was when his right foot got caught on the grass and he whiffed, didn't even make contact with the ball.
Saved a life, Darren. It's not a
Yeah, we're getting to that point. So there was a man in Kentucky who was watching the replays over and over, and he laughed so hard, he gave himself a seizure, which I didn't even know was possible. That is like a new fear unlocked.
Is that why you don't laugh very often?
So he was watching these replays on his phone in bed with his wife, who is a nurse at a rehab hospital for patients overcoming brain injuries. So she called 911. They get him to the hospital. Turns out a CT scan shows a tennis ball-sized brain tumor. He has surgery to have the benign tumor removed with no lasting impact.
I mean,
Wow.
that story is like, first of all,
It takes you all over the place.
it was hilarious when Young Hoku hit the turf when he did do that. But not only did his wife have the wherewithal to work, but like she was a nurse. Like, what if she was just like a librarian or I don't know,
Journalist.
journalist?
pretty crazy. Keeping in the sports realm, Klay Thompson is currently enemy number one
I did see
on
this.
the internet.
Oh,
yes. No. Oh, no is right, Darren. He was dating rapper Megan Thee Stallion. They'd recently bought a house together, been together for a couple years. And then he decides to tell her he doesn't feel like being monogamous. And he reportedly cheated on her and was having these crazy mood swings when he wasn't playing well.
just peace out on monogamy, baby.
So he
I'm
is
done.
currently enemy number one.
Is that why he has a boat? Just sail off?
Well,
A boat which I
was
believe
wondering
he-
where that segue was
A
going.
boat I believe he named after her.
Not anymore.
Don't get me started. And, well, technically I did already start, but I'm not going to go more in depth into how I feel about this situation. Turns out Harry Styles does love American Girls. It's not just a song on his new album. After dating Zoe Kravitz for roughly 8 months, the former One Direction star, see it's all connected, is engaged.
Congratulations.
To her?
Yes, to Zoe
Okay,
Kravitz.
just checking. I
Yes.
wasn't sure if it was Nicki Minaj.
No. And the last one note I have is, what is ESPN Jeopardy? Coming this summer, a sports-only trivia show hosted by Joe Buck. Sounds a lot like Wise Guy Wannabes, if you ask me.
Let me
Did you
just tell you
copyright
something.
that?
when I was a youngster at Arizona State University, the school held a sports trivia contest, and it was teams of 3, and it was myself, a coworker at the State Press named Dan Zeiger, and Paul Coro.
Love Paul Coro.
And we ended up dominating the competition in large part because Dan could name every city and nickname of the one-time North American Soccer League teams, and that got us way ahead. And you know what? Each of us won
Nothing.
a beautiful answer machine, old school answer machine with the tape.
You might want to
player.
tell Dani and everyone else.
No, I know
watching
what
and
that
listening
is. I
what
had a
an answering
landline
machine
growing
is.
up.
I was very excited to get
Way
that
to age yourself.
answer
Well,
machine.
look, you're pretty good at Wise Guy Trivia. Maybe you apply for ESPN Sports Jeopardy.
You know, it's funny. I knew so much sports trivia for the longest time, and I don't. I know a lot of Cardinals off the top of my head now, so I do okay with Wise Guy stuff. But in general, like I used to be able to name every baseball player, every NBA player. I don't. There's so many times we're watching the All-Star game, and I ask my sons, I'm like, who is this guy? And he's been like an All-Star like 4 years in a row, and I literally have never heard of him. Probably because he plays in the American League, and I only watch Diamondbacks.
Did you
but-
play Trivial Pursuit growing up?
Yes, and you always went for the
Sports,
orange.
But they had Sports Trivial Pursuit.
Yes, and I did have that.
That was a good game.
But the problem with that
Danny's
was,
like, what is he
who was I
talking
going to
about?
play it with? Like, nobody wanted to play that game against me.
I think no one wanted to play any games with you.
That's probably fair.
On that note, you both have been cultured. You're welcome.
All right, where to next here? Because we do a bunch of mea culpas on this show, and I mentioned.
Why, do you have one?
Well, sort of. I don't have a great.
I tripped him up, Danny.
I don't have a great history when it comes to selecting or predicting who might be the starting left guard. When Dani and I are talking about who we think might project to be the starting left guard, I believe it was a year ago. Dani and I.
It was right guard. It was Isaiah Adams.
Okay, it was right guard. We had a number of discussions. I wouldn't say they got heated. They were heated. That's too strong of a phrase, but they were good discussions, bouncing back and forth. Again, Dani was right. I was wrong. Now the question is, do we have this same kind of conversation and debate when it comes to right guard again with Chase Bisontis, Isaiah Adams, fill in the blank, who else might be an option? Now, again, we're here in late April. Everything's in pencil unless you want to put someone in ink right now. But I think we're all comfortable saying Isaac Seumalo is your left guard. He's not going to be flipped over to the right side.
Bisontis comes into a great situation for him from a personal standpoint. The high round 2 offensive lineman draft pick has the opportunity for some high-level competition. Now, after the draft, or after, God knows days of the week, Friday, when we last heard from head coach Mike LaFleur and had asked about whether or not Bisontis would stay inside a guard where he's played, been a starter the last 3 years for Texas A&M Aggies, or if he would possibly move out to right tackle, which is where he played every game as a freshman. And LaFleur made it very clear he's going to start on the inside. Not as a starter, but personally is going to start on the inside. That makes sense. Begin. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. That's where he's been playing recently. That's the natural position for him. That's where he's been playing well. There's competition there. Isaiah Adams is going into year 3. He's had ups and downs. Didn't play a ton his rookie year. Started last year, and then when Will Hernandez came back, lost a starting job, regained it. So he has shown good things. That job is not solidified for Adams. So Bisontis comes in and has some opportunity to become the starting right guard. He played really well at A&M. That was a pretty good run game, good offensive line there. The question would be, is there opportunity for him to swing out to right tackle? That does not seem likely to me, at least right off the bat, especially bringing in Elijah Wilkinson this offseason. Started every game for the Falcons last year on that spot, blocking for Bijan Robinson. This is a good opportunity, though, for Chase Bisontis to come in and to earn a spot. I think there's high competition for that starting right guard spot.
His starts, talking about Bisontis, though, in college, predominantly left guard. So now you're asking him to switch to the right side, which I'm sure he'd be more than willing to. So the conversation is, okay, do you keep a rookie, an offensive lineman? Sometimes O-linemen take a little bit longer to mature in the NFL. Do you keep him on the left side as a backup, or do you move him over to the right side and compete with an Isaiah Adams, a Matt Pryor, Oliudo, who all have starting experience on the right side?
I'm not comparing the two of how he will play. Feels like Paris Johnson Jr. The left side was Johnson's natural, comfortable spot in college. As a rookie, DJ Humphries was the left tackle, and the Cardinals needed a right tackle. Now, Johnson had experience some playing on the right side, so that's where he spent his entire rookie year before moving over to the left. The fact that Bisontis has, it might not be the most recent, but that's extensive experience to be the starting right tackle for an entire year. So he has experience playing on both sides. I would expect that competition for him to be as the right guard spot.
It's April, but I'm going to say that Bisontis is your starting right guard.
So when they line up for OTAs and minicamp, Bisontis is your starting right. Like that,
no,
I guess.
When I say starter,
that feels
I mean
too soon.
I mean September.
By
when the games
week
count,
1. Okay,
when the
that's
games
fair.
count. The rest of this stuff doesn't matter because almost always they don't put when they come out here the first time, they're not going to do that with a rookie just to kind of put the rookie in his place, whether they plan to do it or not. I just find it hard to believe you're going to take a guy at 35 overall and not seriously think he's going to step right in. I mean, you're basic. He's so close to being a first round pick. Like that's what you're thinking, and I think that's the idea. And I think if Isaiah Adams had shown you enough of what you were hoping for, you might not make that pick. And
I disagree.
Really?
Because offensive line is so important. And again, as I say with the draft, it's not about just this one season. And Seumalo, I believe his contract is 2 years, 3 years. There's an out there. So
Maybe.
I'm taking at 35, it was arguably the second best interior offensive lineman off the board. So
Okay.
no, if Isaiah Adams was an all-pro, no, I'm still making that
Okay.
Bisontis pick because now I've got the luxury of a backup, and you can DJ Humphries him, make him inactive all
Maybe.
season long, and then bring him along.
Except DJ Humphries was inactive in part because that team was so good already. I mean, DJ Humphries was inactive for a team that went to the NFC Championship. So let's not get this twisted. If you believe Bisontis is that good, then he can't. You're not redshirting him. You're just not.
If you don't see it, you're
Well,
certainly.
If you don't see it from Chase Bisontis, you mean?
If he's not good enough right now,
Yeah, but that would scare me.
well, it wouldn't scare me.
Well, that's because
Nothing scares me.
nothing scares you. I was going to say something else rude, but I decided not to. I think he's going to be the star. I think the big thing is I think the big competition is going to end up being, and I don't even know if it'll be a competition, but I think the big question is going to be ultimately a right tackle. I think they drafted Bisontis to be the right guard, and I think that's going to be very clear very fast. That's what I think.
So who's
And I don't
right
know that.
tackle
That's
then?
just me. Well, I mean, right now it's probably Wilkinson. You've got some other options. You got Udo. You got Pryor, I guess, could be there. I mean, I think Wilkinson makes all the sense because he started all last year, and you really didn't add anybody that I would think triumphs him, gets over him. You know, I think the one thing you would secretly, I think ultimately Pryor and Udo are for depth. I think secretly you hope that somehow Christian Jones can take this step forward that unfortunately he has not at this point. I mean, you do still have him around.
You got Josh Fryer.
You got Josh Fryer. You got a couple of guys, younger guys. Are they ready? I don't know.
The offensive line, specifically because of this, we anticipate being a Mike LaFleur offense along the lines of the Rams and 49ers, where you really need that offensive line to perform as a five-man unit. You don't need all pros at all five spots, but how do you work together in tandem and allow a Jeremiyah Love, a Tyler Algier, a James Conner to do their things out of the backfield and obviously keep the quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, upright so he's not getting knocked around like he was a year ago, and he's not forced to drop back 40-plus times every single week, and defenses know exactly what's coming, and they stack the box and force you to throw. And that, to me, and I mentioned it a year, that's not sustainable. I mean, it proved to be not sustainable last season. So you need to be able to figure out some way to get some balance, and it doesn't have to be 50-50, but some kind of balance within that offense.
Well, that's also going to start with, you know, hopefully the defense playing a little bit better and keeping games closer so that you're not feeling pressured. Now, one of the things that has always bothered me about the balance thing is there's been too many times, and I'm not, this isn't just JG, this is multiple head coaches I've covered over 25 years where there have been plenty of games where they're, well, how come you got a little unbalanced? Well, we were playing from behind, and like most of the game they're behind by like 10 points, and it's like, okay, that doesn't really completely hold
The
water
only
to me.
time the balance question comes up is if you're losing. Because if you're winning, no one cares.
Also true.
You can throw the ball 50 times and win, and people will say, well, that you can't sustain that over the course of the season, but for that particular week, fine. And
That's
you can
true.
run the ball 40-plus times for that particular week. So
You're not wrong.
the whole balance thing, that's if you're winning, everything, numbers don't matter except for your win and loss record. It's when you're losing and people start nitpicking, like, why are you in this funk right now?
See, this is the important stuff that we learn about Craig here. Is we learn his deep-rooted philosophies, and this is one of them. Balance doesn't matter when you're winning.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
All right, I'm just saying.
Got to have balance in your life, though.
I'm again, as we learn, I gotta like take mental notes.
That little light bulb going off above your head right now, Darren? Anything else on your mind?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Danny's got stuff to say. I can see it in her
No,
face.
I'm just here. I'm just here for a good time.
Here so she doesn't get fined.
That's right.
Is Calais Campbell coming back to play this season?
Yes, I would think so.
I thought you knew something.
I don't know. I mean, if you're asking my opinion, it seems like he will play.
I think Calais will play.
I don't know it'll be here.
I also agree with that. You look at who they've now compiled, especially after they took Proctor. They've got Collier, Stills.
You've got a 6-man rotation right now.
Are you including Proctor?
Yes.
But Campbell's not going to go somewhere where he's looking to play 40-plus snaps a game. So it's not necessarily the rotation to me. I would love to see him here in Arizona. Every Cardinals fan would love to see him here. I'm sure there's a part of him that would love to. This would be season 19. If he feels like there's a situation that's better equipped for him, maybe a little further along than where he thinks the Cardinals are, maybe a better fit of after having played for Nick Rawlis, right? Is there somewhere else he wants to go try? There's going to be so many personal factors that come into it that I don't know that this will be the spot that Campbell would want to return if he does play for season 19, which I hope he does.
Here's what I have as a 6-man rotation on the defensive line.
Okay.
Again, we're talking April, so keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Darius Robinson, Walter Nolan, L.J. Collier, Roy Lopez, Caleb Proctor, Dante Stills.
Okay.
And you still have P.J. Mustipher.
They just signed Billings.
And Billings and Jonah Williams, but they don't have much guaranteed money. So, and again, you want your draft picks, and I would think Dante Stills has been very, very good for this team as a late round pick and someone that I don't think needs a lot of snaps, but you like having him in that locker room and around.
Agree.
And L.J. Collier, again, provided he stays healthy, I think has been a solid 1-year pickup for the last 3 years, 3 or 4 years, and that's just kind of where he's at in his career.
Right.
And then Caleb Proctor, I think it's a great story from an FCS school, decided to stay there his entire college career, even though there were heavy interest is what he used in his conference call about perhaps going to an FBS school, and maybe he's a little bit undersized, but his arm length, his quickness off the line of scrimmage, he's got great footwork based off everything you read. I'm very intrigued by him as a prospect. Again, you're not asking him to come in and play 40+ snaps a week.
So are you saying, so who's, if Calais were to come back, who's inactive for you if everybody's healthy?
But do you keep, 6 defensive linemen active on game day?
Most time, sometimes it's 5.
Are we thinking the defense is similar or going to change much?
Do you think it's going to change much?
I guess it depends on how much you believe you can go with a 3-man D-line or a 4-man defensive front.
I mean, your defensive coordinator is the same guy. I don't anticipate it being drastic.
I'm not thinking drastic, but could you see some more 4-man fronts as opposed to 3-man fronts?
I don't think it's going to look drastically different.
No, I don't, because your roster is not set up for that.
The roster's built for what his philosophy is.
Yeah, your outside linebacker room is not. I don't know if they're necessarily set up to be 4-down linemen. Do you?
If you have more belief in your defensive linemen that you have on the roster than your outside linebackers, yeah, I would put 4 guys on the line of scrimmage. So with Josh Sweat.
Then who are your linebackers?
Mac Wilson.
As what, middle?
Yeah.
And who are your 2 off-ball guys?
I would have Zaven Collins on the field.
Okay.
And then that's 4. That's 7. And then you've got your 2 corners or 3 corners.
Wait, that's 7. How did you get to 7?
4 defensive linemen.
Okay.
Josh Sweat is 5. Mac and Zaven, they're 7.
So is Josh playing defensive line, though, or is he playing
No, he's
linebacker?
outside. He's outside linebacker. I'm talking about 4 guys on the defensive line.
No, I know what you're saying.
I'm not putting Josh Sweat on with his hand in the dirt. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but to me, if you're running a defense like that and you got 4 defensive linemen, Josh Sweat is in coverage and in space a lot more than you would.
I would not put Josh Sweat in.
Yeah,
coverage.
Neither would I. That's my point. He would
then
have
how
to
are you
be
justifying having him on the field?
He would have to be one
much?
of the defensive linemen. He would have to be a defensive end. I don't know if he's big enough for that, and I don't know who your other linebacker is then. That's my point.
You put the best 11 on the field.
Okay.
And if you believe that you have more hand in the dirt guys, then that's what you do. I would hope that things change a little bit based off of last season, despite the defensive coordinator coming back. They have a new defensive assistant.
Sure, but there's a difference of maintaining your philosophy and making tweaks and drastically changing.
That would not, to me, that would not be a drastic change.
And
because it wouldn't be every single possession or every single snap.
I also think in this one move, this one player doesn't necessarily give answers to everything on the defense. You bring back Roy Lopez, who was here with Rawlis. So you liked what he showed when he was here, and if that's the type of player you're going to bring back, I would imagine it's for a similar role, not anything drastically different.
Although I do remember seeing some fans talking about how Lopez was used in Detroit a little bit more because they use a 4-3 and he was able to get some stuff done on the inside. It'll be interesting to see because you said Billings is this and that. Like other than Lopez, who's your nose tackle? That's the thing. Like Who are you putting in the middle there? It's going to be fascinating to see how they play that.
And who's there to stop the run? Because that was a major issue a year ago, was the inability to stop the run. So you got to figure out some way to mitigate that, so you're not so you're able to rush the quarterback on third down, because otherwise doesn't matter who you have at outside linebacker if you can't rush the quarterback.
This all started around Calais Campbell, and who are you making inactive if Campbell decides to come back here? There's one player I would say I am not willing to make inactive if Campbell came back here to have him, and it's Walter Nolan. Other than that, Calais Campbell was the best defensive lineman
That's fair.
last year. Like, I don't see his decision being based around rotation or anything. I mean, when Nolan was not on the field, which was majority of last season, Campbell was the best defensive lineman. He showed he still had it in year 18. So if he were to come back, he is someone who's in the rotation. Like, that is no question in my mind.
And again, you have these discussions in April. They change dramatically as you get closer to week one. And I remember covering Bob Brenly when he was then the manager of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and everyone would ask, what are you going to do when so-and-so comes back? And it was always the same answer. These things tend to work themselves out, meaning you don't need to make the decision until you have to make the decision.
And that's a fair point. But we're not ever going to make any of the decisions. And in fact, if we're talking
Why
about
not?
this in April.
Why can't we make the decisions around here, Darren?
Well, that's a long and storied past there, Craig.
Speaking of stories, you apparently have a story. You want to touch on your running ability?
No, not my running ability. I just want to make sure that everybody saw this.
I think this was a way for you once again to discuss how well you performed in the Tillman race.
No. If anything, it makes me like... I assume you guys all saw that 2 people broke 2 hours at the London Marathon?
It was crazy.
Sebastian Sawe, first person to break the 2-hour barrier, and the guy who finished second was his debut in a marathon. He also broke the 2-hour barrier.
3 dudes broke the world record for a marathon, and one of them finished in 3rd place. That is bonkers to me. And what was more bonkers to me was that I think it's the winter time. Your pace is a 4-minute 33-second mile for more than 26 miles to get that number. Like, I can't even wrap my head around a 4-minute 33-second mile. One. And you're doing it for 26 of them?
And they do it without music.
That's crazy.
2 hours of running, just hearing your feet on the pavement.
The story that came out of this London Marathon, though, were the shoes that Sawe was wearing. Adidas shoes that cost $500. Now, on eBay, the resale value I saw was $3,000.
Well, yeah, because there's barely any of them.
But
right?
this is considered a quote-unquote super shoe because it weighs 3.4 ounces. So basically, you're wearing nothing on your feet.
I will say there's been a couple of times where I've tried to get shoes that don't weigh much when I run because it does make you feel a little bit faster. Ultimately, the ones that I get, they also barely have no sole, and then it's like you're just crushing your knees. Yeah. I find that to be just crazy.
Incredibly impressive.
About a 4-minute 33-second mile for 26 miles.
I'm trying to think, the last time I ran a mile, like decades ago, it might have been over 8 minutes, maybe a little bit under 8, but right around that 8.
Well, again,
I mean, this is like long time
you
ago.
brought this up, but like at Pat's Run, I averaged.
See, I knew we were going to come back to Darren's running.
4.2 miles. I averaged 8 minutes 18 seconds.
That's good
for those miles.
It's because your legs are so long.
And I'm thinking,
now.
I'm going to be lapped
twice
by this guy. That is, I mean, I can't believe people can do that, to be honest. That's amazing to me. And I look, and it's like some of it is like making sure they have the right nutrients on the run and everything like that. But that's superhero stuff to me.
It's a goal for you to work towards, Darren.
That's not happening. Like, I'm sucking wind just talking about it.
Do we need to let you go? Catch your breath? Get some oxygen?
That's okay.
Darren, Dani, you good?
I'm good.
Okay, good. We're a little concerned about you there for a little while, but you're all good. Coming on the back
I wasn't
end,
concerned about
Great.
it.
on the back end of the steroid use.
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm all good.
All right, we're all good here. And that's this week's edition of Cardinals Underground presented by Pacific Office Automation.